Economic alarm bells are going off this morning. The latest GDP report shows the U.S. economy shrank in the first 3 months of the year, contracting by 0.3%. We haven't seen a contraction since the pandemic. Now, keep in mind, this is a snapshot of the economy before Trump's tariff rollout this month. And those tariffs were already causing major industries to sound the alarm about a potential downturn, driving a dip in public support for the president's economic agenda. And as you can see, the stock market reacting this morning already in negative territory. With all this pressure mounting, next hour, Trump hosts another cabinet meeting following last night's campaign-style rally in Michigan to mark his 100th day in office, full of his usual barrage of grand claims and grievances.
I hope for the sake of our country that the Supreme Court is going to save this, because we have to do something. These people are just looking to destroy our country. Nothing will stop me in the mission to keep America safe again. It's very simple. After a lifetime of unelected bureaucrats stealing your paychecks, attacking your values, and trampling your freedoms, we are stopping their gravy train. We cannot allow a handful of communist, radical left judges to obstruct the enforcement of our laws. You're not supposed to criticize the Fed. You're supposed to let him do his own thing. But I know much more than he does about interest rates. They're signing left and right because of my taxation and tariff policies, which are policies of common sense and genius.
We are covering every angle this morning with NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez, NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans, Republican strategist and MSNBC political analyst Susan Del Percio, and New York Times chief White House correspondent and MSNBC political analyst Peter Baker. Okay, Christine, GDP shrank in the first quarter of this year. What is the significance of that, and how does that impact everyday Americans?
So it's the first time the economy didn't grow since the pandemic, and so that is remarkable for its timing. And it was growing strongly at the end of last year. So this is the brakes, hitting the brakes on the American economy. And when you look in the formula that you use to figure out gross domestic product, all of these imports ahead of his tariffs, record amounts of imports in some categories coming in here as people were stockpiling ahead of tariffs. That distorted this number, and so that's why it's so negative. You also had government spending fall because of DOGE, and they're cutting government spending. And remember, this is a rearview mirror picture. This is the first 3 months of the year, so this is before the biggest of the Trump tariffs started to bite.
So does that mean it could get even worse?
It could, or it could bounce back. We really don't know what's going to happen. I mean, this trade policy is so upsetting of the apple cart. You know, it's unclear what's going to happen next. We did see a private sector payroll number today that was very, very weak. There's a government jobs number on Friday. Every one of these numbers we're going to be parsing to see just what are the effects on the economy of this very big, different trade change from the president.
Gabe, how is the White House framing this economic news?
Well, hi there, Ana. Well, the Trump administration has repeatedly tried to look backwards in many ways when the stock market is not as high as they would like it to be. They've been blaming the Biden administration for leaving them with poor economic conditions, even though inflation had already started to cool. Now, just a few moments ago, President Trump posting on social media that, quote, "This is Biden's stock market, not Trump's. I didn't take over until January 20th. Tariffs will soon start kicking in, and companies are starting to move into the U.S. And then further down, this will take a while. This has nothing to do with tariffs, only that he left us with bad numbers. Be patient," he tells his supporters. However, if you look to January of 2024, the president posted on social media that this is the Trump stock market because my polls against Biden are so good. So again, that makes the point that the president has a long history of taking credit for the stock market when it is up and trying to deflect blame for it when it's lower than he'd like.
Okay, so Gabe just did the fact check there for us. Susan, can Trump really get away with saying this isn't my economy, this has nothing to do with my tariffs?
Well, Trump's been very good at getting away with those kind of statements for 8 years now. But the difference is now, Anna, for 4 years before he took the presidency back, he was able to say anything without accountability. He wasn't president. Now as president, people will hold him accountable. His words matter matter more, whether it's to CEOs or people just planning their mom and pop stores, like if they have to worry about what's coming into the country in tariffs. So his words matter more, and people will hold him accountable, as we've seen, frankly, in a whole spate of different polling recently.
And Christine, bottom line, this is his economy, no?
Yeah, I mean, he says he wants to remake it, and this is what happens when you want to remake it. I mean, it's remarkable, the collapse in container traffic coming from China to the United States. These are the two world's biggest economies. That will have ripple effects. I've been doing, checks of freight companies and trucking companies, and the layoffs have already begun there. And you've got a lot of small companies, especially small retailers, independent retailers, who are not ordering for back to school and not ordering for the fall season, and they don't know if they'll be in business for Christmas. Those are Main Street jobs with all kinds of other attendant jobs that go with them. So there's a lot of economic activity that we're going to see how this plays out. And the president is determined that tariffs are a good thing, and he is going to remake sort of this balance of global trade.
He was talking a lot about the tariffs last night at that rally. He's about to sit down next hour with his cabinet. This is day 101, Gabe. How does this news impact their agenda?
Well, look, a lot of what we'll be focusing on during this cabinet meeting in the next hour or so is whether Elon Musk will be there. Of course, Elon Musk heading up Doge. His time within the government is supposedly coming to an end. Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, in an interview with the New York Post that was published yesterday, said that Elon Musk is no longer regularly working physically inside the White House, that he's been doing some of his work by phone. So it is unclear right now whether he will be at this cabinet meeting today, but that's something we'll be watching. We're also hoping to get more information on this discussion of trade deals with other countries. We've been hearing different accounts over the last several days about how far along they are. Several Trump administration officials saying they may be close to a deal with India, perhaps Japan. So that's something that we hope to learn more about as the day progresses and as we're getting this new economic news that you just referenced.
Gabe, thanks so much. Keep us posted. Peter, what are you hearing about Trump's mindset as he is exiting the honeymoon phase of his final term in office? Are the economic realities starting to sink in?
Well, look, I think he is, counseling patience, which I think is a particularly unusual advice from the most impatient person we can think of, right? This is a man who lives very short term, lives, as my colleague Maggie Haberman once put it, from 5 minutes to 5 minutes. And now he's trying to tell the country, yeah, OK, there's some short term pain here, but we're going to get to this golden age that he promised in the inauguration. And the question is whether or not the country is willing to go along with that. The country, elected him with the idea that he was a master steward of the economy, that he was going to make prices go down. That obviously hasn't happened. I think the people thought that when he came in, the economy would get better, not worse for a while. He certainly didn't prepare the ground for this idea that the transition to this non-globalized version of the economy that he has in mind would involve any kind of, adjustment period. So he didn't lay that groundwork. A lot of Americans might be surprised at what's happened so far. And the question is how long this current turmoil continues. If it's sustained, it becomes, I think, a bigger problem for him. If it's short term, if he manages to kind of pull back and create some trade deals that he calls a victory and everything kind of returns to some sort of stable situation, he'll probably be okay.
We know in the past, at least, trade deals can take a long time. And we have seen in latest polling, at least, high prices are very much top of mind for voters. Here's what President Trump said on ABC when he was asked if his tariffs will raise prices and make this worse.
Hard times are ahead?
I don't think so. I think great times are ahead. Look, since I came in, gasoline is down, groceries are down, egg prices are down, many things are down, just about everything.
Quick fact check here. Since Trump took office, gas prices, grocery prices, egg prices, look at this. They are all up. In fact, eggs are at a record high for the consumer. Susan, we have seen this over and over again with Trump as a candidate, as president before, as president now, where he says the same thing over and over and over again repeatedly, in effect trying to get his supporters to believe it's true, that it is now their reality. Do you see it working this time?
I don't. And here's one reason why. Because now Americans are going to the supermarket and they're putting their groceries on credit card. They are accumulating credit card debt, which will cost them more because they can't afford the groceries at the store. So people know what the prices are.
They can't escape the reality.
You can't escape that reality. And, perhaps, I'm not of this camp, but there is a camp that said, Trump's tariffs plans could work out, but it's a 5 to 10 year proposition. Now, China can hold on maybe for 5 to 10 years because they don't care about what they do to their public, and the public can't rise up. Americans are not going to tolerate that for 5 or 10 months.
And none of this is addressing the cost of college, student loan debt, the cost of daycare, the cost of housing. I mean, there are some really big pain points for households right now that when we were covering this election and the run up to this election, that's what people really cared about. And I feel like the grocery bill was the thing that was kind of like, and our grocery bill's higher. On top of all these other things that are still these problems, this sort of undoing of globalization and decoupling from China, not addressing in the near term, at least, any of these other issues that really worried American voters.